particularly if Republicans make the gains that are expected.
Well, you know, I won't even get into how many 48 days out,
no, the name
or 40 days out, but I will say this. I think that when you look at it from a middle class standpoint, and in this race, I'm going to be the voice of the middle class. I've always been the voice of the middle class. Those families that are really going through it and taking it hard on the chin. A lot of folks have this perception that you have to be unemployed to be going through rough times. I mean, I was just down the street the other day, and it didn't dawn on me that I would be here today, but I mean at that particular time. But I woke up at 5 o'clock on Monday morning and felt that I needed to get out and do what I do, run into workers. So I went right down here to Bus Depot, public bus depot, and I ran into some interesting people there. I mean, individuals that are, one lady caught 4 buses to get to that point, and I can only imagine having to do that every day. Another person talked about the increase in bus fees, how would you say, fares, and she said, you know, I didn't get a voice on it because they had the public hearing at 2 o'clock and I'm at work, you know. So saying all of that, when you hear these voices of individuals that are a part of the middle class, they're looking for someone who's going to stand up for them. I think that the problem with the GOP leadership and also with my other two opponents in this race, that they're still holding on to supporting those, I guess, they interface with on a daily basis and need to be on the fundraising trail, or good friends of theirs, or themselves personally when it comes down to tax policy. I think it's going to be a very hard speech to give if for members of the GOP and those that feel that they need to stand for the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy and saying that I'm going to vote against it because those tax cuts are not included. Middle class tax cuts, I think Mr. Boehner, he was thinking common sense of saying if I'm presented with it, then I'm going to vote for it. That vote, if it comes before the election, which I believe it may very well come before the election, people are going to get an opportunity to see how strong GOP and conservative candidates and lawmakers relationship really is with special interests. And I think that it will define this race, not only this race, but other races throughout the country. You know, looking at, again, talking about the tax policy before the Bush administration, there weren't a lot of complaints. And there weren't a lot of folks running around here saying, oh my goodness, we must do something about making sure that the top 2% or 1% even gets more back from the government. And one other thing, I don't want to seem like I feel like I'm a state trooper. You know, usually when I got to an accident, I would say, okay, what happened? And then they started getting into how they stopped at Publix before they got here, and they were on their way to somewhere else. On this tax policy question, that the Republicans are going to have to make a decision if they're for it, or will they be for it, especially for the Senate, these statewide elections. They're going to have to show a level of leadership on making sure that they let the public know that they stand with them. The only reason why someone would hold out because the wealthy is they're not getting their tax cut would be for reasons that will be hard to explain. My question for Mr. Chris and Mr. Rubio: where are you going to get the $700 billion, or the 700? Well, but where are you going to get the dollars to sustain these tax cuts? Non-job creating tax cuts for the super wealthy. You hear them saying, "Oh, we got to make sure we give more money back to people so that we can continue the American dream and pushing forward and creating jobs." Many of these tax cuts go into accounts that are non-job creating accounts. And so the only change that I would like to see outside of what we have right now is for the top 2%, if there are small businesses that fall into that category, which we do know that there are some, that they get a tax cut to be able to continue this job creation that we all speak of within small businesses. I hope the vote comes before the election.
You expected it might, think it
Well, I think with Mr. Boehner's comments over the weekend kind of put a shot in the arm of that happening before, prior to the election. There may be some that say, well, I'm not going to vote for it because I feel that it will continue to pile on to the debt in the wrong way when we should not allow the job producers, in their words, to not get a tax cut, to continue to produce jobs. And I just don't feel that argument is going to hold water, because many of the tax cuts, especially in the Bush tax cuts for the top earners in this country, very seldom go into job creation. Middle class need a shot in the arm, because they're carrying the brunt of this recession right now. The stimulus was to stop us going into a depression, which it did. What we're looking at now and trying to stimulate this economy, something has to happen outside of saying we need to, bring spending under control in Washington, D.C. Absolutely. Who wants it out of control? I voted for PAYGO. I'm the only person in this campaign that has voted for PAYGO, and then voted against raising the debt limit until PAYGO was placed in there. Calls from the White House, from Rahm Emanuel, came into my phone, my office, everything else. And since we have people of faith here in the room, I won't share with you some of the words that were shared with me, but that particular time. But I think looking at this for what it is, domestic investment is always good. That will create jobs and bring about relief for those that are hit hardest.